Perfect. Let's do it.
So yeah, the point of this webinar is going to be a little different than the ones we normally do, where the ones we normally do are very, very tactical. This one is going to be more sharing kind of wisdom that Stefan and I have learned along the way, mostly from our own mistakes, our own screw-ups, and just stuff we've learned. I mean, I've been doing online marketing since 2004, 2005-ish. I know Stefan's been since what, 2012?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. Both of us have built, both of us started with nothing, didn't know anybody in this industry, at least I didn't. Had tons of very, very mediocre years. Like I think my first couple of years I made 20,000, 30,000. I was like living on nothing. Even had a year in there that I made $5,000. Both of us have kind of gone from that to making over millions of dollars a year, growing businesses. We both grew a business to $23 million. So yeah, a lot of wisdom to share, a lot of stuff that we know now that would have saved us tons and tons of headaches, tons and tons of money, tons of frustration. And yeah, so this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. We did a roundtable about this at our last mastermind on the VIP day. Basically had 5 or 6 super successful entrepreneurs sit on the stage and just rattle off all the stuff they kind of know now that they wish they would have known before. And it was really, really insightful. Like, I mean, I took away a bunch of good insights from it. So I think you guys are going to be pretty pleased with what we put together today. Steph, anything else we want to introduce before we hop in?
No, I'm excited. I agree. It's a really important topic. I think what's cool about this topic is that it's something that's applicable to everyone. And I kind of mentioned that in my email that I mentioned earlier, which is like, you know, whether you're a beginner or you're in your first business or you're a new copywriter or you're a very experienced copywriter or you have run a bunch of really successful businesses in the past, like I think that we have wisdom to share. You know, some of you may be like, yeah, I knew that. Some of you be like, oh yeah, I didn't think about it. And then just the reinforcement aspect of it too. I think having just like hearing from other people about mistakes, well, obviously mistakes you made, but it's also insights. At least what I have, because I kind of, you know, was going through and reflecting on this, and there's a lot of good thoughts here. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to share.
Cool. Everybody who's in the chat, give us one thing that you're kind of looking to take away from this before we get started. I'm kind of curious to hear what you have to say.
Got a formal shirt. It's not a formal. It's just like a shirt. Laura got it for me, and it's like it's a new shirt she got for me. I tried it on today, and also someone asked me to turn on the lamp next to me because it looked like luscious and vibrant or something like that. So I turned on. The best part about these lamps is that there's a remote for them, so I can just sort of go boom, boom.
Fancy.
That's how you know you've made it, when you have lamps with remotes.
Fancy. Cool. So yeah, some stuff trickling in. Self-sabotage, first client, high ticket, switching from freelancer to offer owner, offer creation, scaling offers with affiliates, mindset for being a mentee. Cool. So stuff all over the place. How to stay humble when making millions. Awesome. Those are good problems to have. That is something you do learn though as you make a lot more money. Problems don't go away when you make a lot more money. That's something I remember when I didn't have any money, I just assumed like when you have a ton of money, you just don't have any problems. That's not the case. Your problems are just a lot different. It's like when you have no money and you get a flat tire, it's like the end of the world because you don't have money and then you can't get to work the next day and you can't drive and you can't go get groceries and you can't afford to get the tire fixed. When you have money, it's a minor inconvenience. So a lot of stuff definitely changes that. That's actually a good kind of lesson. If you think money is going to make all your problems go away, it's not. It's definitely a much more enjoyable life. That's for sure. And much more convenient life, but yeah.
One thing I'll say about that too, Justin, is and I've talked about this before, but one of my biggest mindset shifts as I started with running businesses is realizing that there are no crises in business. Because what happens early on is like you're running, for example, my health supplement company, where you run out of like inventory, but you've done orders and you're not gonna have inventory for 4 weeks, and you're like, shit, I'm gonna have to refund all these people. Or you have merchant processing, but then like you lose one of your accounts and you can't process as much money, and you're like, oh my God. Or there's like somebody holds money, or you get ripped off, or like there's so many things that happen. And like early on, it's like there's all these crises that you're like thinking you react, like you're reacting to a crisis and you're very reactionary. As you start to like level up a bit more though, I think what you realize is that there's like, that's the nature of business, is like there's always going to be like crises, quote unquote, but they're not crises, they're just problems. And like part of the nature and like the essential nature of business is that it's like there's a nonstop flow of like challenges and problems to be solved. And like a big part of what business is actually just being a professional problem solver, and it's finding ways to like to fix those problems, right? And then once you realize that those are challenges, and that's literally what business is solving problems, and the problems become increasingly complex and challenging as you level up. It helps with a mindset shift, because now you're not reacting to things like, oh no, like this is happening to me. You're like, oh yeah, cool. I mean, of course, that's what I'm doing. This is literally what I do for a living, is I fix problems like this. I think it's a really important mindset shift, and it's, for me, was really helpful. It's one of the most the biggest mindset shifts I ever had.
Cool. So one thing I'll start with one of the ones I have on my list, and I actually mentioned this on your Road to a Billion show last week. Feels like last year. But one of the biggest things for me once I started making money was getting smarter about how I actually manage my money, and not letting my expenses match so my income kept going up and then my expenses kind of kept going up. That was a big issue for me starting out. So like I said, I was making like $20,000-$30,000 a year, kind of living on nothing, living in a $250 apartment, eating rice and beans kind of thing. And then when I started making more money, when I got up to like $70,000, $100,000 a year, and I was making a good income and could actually do stuff, I've made the big mistake of actually just started spending a lot more money than I should. Like I remember I leased a Jeep Commander that was like 15 to, I don't know how much it was, but it was expensive. Something it was like a $55,000 car that I should not have. I had no business driving at that point in my life. And then expenses on everything else went up. I was buying clothes. I was having bar tabs that were ungodly high. To me, that's a huge issue that I see with a lot of people. It's not uncommon. It's very normal. Like once you get that first taste of like making more money, and I mean, I even know people now who I have a friend who probably makes 3 or 4 million a year, and he's been making that much for 7 or 8 years, and he has less of a net worth than I do, because he simply just spends a shitload of money. So I mean, it can happen at all levels. So yeah, keeping your expenses in line as your income goes up, I think is a huge thing that it took me a while to learn, but I wish I would have known that when I started.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because like I agree, and we talked about it. And I mean, like one thing I did is like with Rank for Lions Publishing, and when I bought a Mercedes SLK 55 AMG that was like, I think, new like 90,000, but it was like 1 year old, but didn't have miles on it. But I got it for like in the mid 70s. But I wanted like a low car payment which is funny because now like I have like high car payments because I don't, whatever, in a different place in my life. But I think I put like $50,000 down or something like that on this car, which was like a huge chunk of what was in my checking account, to like on like a Mercedes I ended up having for like 2 years. And my car payment was only like $500 a month or something like that. But still, it was like, that was like the dumbest fucking thing I could have done. Like, why did because then there's times where I still got stretched financially, and I'm like, why did I put $50,000 into like a depreciating car that, yeah, was cool. But just stupid things like that. But I do think that on the other side, there is like the whole thing of, I mean, I kind of like stretching yourself. I was telling like Laura, we were talking about this last night, and how sometimes like stretching, or like like when you make big investments, when you stretch yourself a little bit, like I think in some respects it's good because it forces you to rise to that occasion. So I mean, even everything like, you know, buying a ticket for this whatever virtual event, which some people did, and that was like a bit of a stretch. But I think those are investments like that where then they kind of like that levels your mindset, and you're like, okay, like I'm gonna like how am I gonna like I'm gonna make more money or more motivated, you know, or like things like that. And then like in that mindset of even how do I going from like, you know, how can I pay for like what can I do? Like when I like Anna talked about like booking that private jet from New York back to Vegas, which was like $25,000 or whatever it was. But our idea was like, what can we do to like create an ROI from this activity? So like there's mindset stuff you can do that I think is important. And then we like created Freelancer Freedom, and we did that event, and we did stuff, and so we paid for the jet by creating like stuff around it. So I think there's things you can do there, but there's a difference between that and then just blowing your money on shit for status that then like is literally just, you know, feels good for like a week or two, and then you end up being like stressed and anxious and things like that.
Yep, I agree. Cool. You want to roll with one of yours on your list?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll go through some of my fascinations that I shared here. In my emails, really just an excuse to write some fascinations too. I mean, one really obvious one, I know there's a lot in the chat. We will answer some of these ones that are being put in the chat too. You know, I talked about number drunkenness being a real thing. And that's like a really, you know, it's a pretty simple one, but it's a true one, right? Which is the fact that almost everyone gets like drunk with numbers early on. And this is true whether you're a freelancer or you're a business owner. You know, and I wrote that fascination in my email today. I was thinking more in the post in Justin Stefan Talk copy. I was thinking about it more from like a business standpoint. Cause like, you know, like talk about, I've said a lot of times I made $1 million my first year of my supplement company, but I lost 200,000. I remember like looking and being like, wow, $1 million. And it was like, great. And I was like stressed as fuck, and my health was going downhill, and I thought I was gonna have to like fold the business and go get a job as a copy chief and all of that. And even in like the health supplement company I have with Cody, it's like we got to like the, you know, 10 million mark this, you know, year pretty like a few months back or whatever. And he'd never done more than that. But like we've had some profitability challenges there where like we had not profitability, but like merchant reserves, some things like that where banks are holding some money, and like we're not like netting out. Like we've got, I don't know, 500,000 plus in reserves, and we'll get that money, but we don't have it today. So he was like really excited about the 10 million mark. And to me, I like did not care at all. I'm like, yeah, great. Like this, we should have done 20 million and we should be more profitable. So like, not that you can't celebrate your wins and be like, that's a cool milestone, but not getting drunk on your revenue, because your revenue really doesn't matter. And even the same thing again is like going back to what we just talked about as a freelancer. If you make $1 million, or fuck it, if you make $100,000, but you spend all that money and you're still broke, then like, you know, that's not really a great place to be either. So be less obsessed with big numbers and more obsessed with money in the bank, whether that's as a business owner or as a you know, freelancer.
Yeah, I think that's excellent advice. Too many people get wowed by the revenue numbers and let that kind of determine a lot of stuff. And the revenue sounds good to other people, but the reality is how much you take home is what really matters. Yeah. By the way, just one thing I want to mention, this is not like an open Q&A call. So if you're posting like questions that you want us to answer, that's actually not what this call is. So
we'll try. I mean, if I see one that comes up, I'll you know.
Yeah, I mean, if there's something that kind of taps on stuff we're already planning on talking about, we could definitely talk about it, but we're not going to be doing like open questions like we do sometimes. So just want to make that clear. So the next one I got written down is a huge one that would have helped me starting out. And not even just starting out, it's so freaking important. We do this all the time in the Copy Accelerator group with business owners. It's focusing on one thing until either you're really damn good at it or you've scaled the shit out of it. So I'll give you a couple of examples. If you're just starting out and you're trying to learn skills, I always recommend focusing on, like, let's say you want to learn copywriting or you want to learn email copywriting. Focus exclusively on that until you're really, really damn good at it. So the big mistake I made early on was I hopped around from like SEO to blogging to doing like affiliate kind of like squeeze pages to playing around with pay-per-click ads. It's why it took me so long to kind of get going and make money. Like I made money, but I was humming along doing like 30 grand a year. Whereas if you compare that to someone like Tanner or Alec, who are two of the guys I mentored with email stuff, They focused solely on email. I wouldn't let them do anything else. They literally just wrote emails every single day. And as soon as they're good at emails, I had them start taking on clients. And both of them within 12 months were making over $100,000 a year. That's a huge difference. And that's all because they just focused on one thing. So I highly, highly recommend focusing on one thing, especially when you're starting out. And the other thing is, even when you're further along, so let's say you're a business owner, so many business owners have multiple offers and they're trying to do something on 3 different things. They're trying to start a second business. You really shouldn't be thinking about that at all until you have one offer that's like, your sole focus should be to get one offer scaling on cold traffic and get that to be crushing it. So one offer, one traffic source, doesn't matter which one. It could be Facebook, could be YouTube ads, could be whatever. But put your sole focus on getting that one offer dialed in, and then your sole focus on scaling it. And then once you have it scaled and it's crushing and it's doing 100 sales a day, a couple hundred sales a day, whatever, then you can kind of branch out and like, okay, let's try to get different traffic sources from YouTube and native and affiliates or whatever. But you really want that sole focus on one thing. We end up repeating this to copywriters, offer owners all the time. Like I said, it was a big mistake that I made early on, and a big mistake I made even later on as a business owner. So I would highly recommend focusing on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it kind of ties in. It's related, not exactly, but in the email I put the 2 most important letters in the English language in my one of my fascinations. Can anyone guess what my 2 most important letters in the English language are? And how mastering these letters will increase productivity tenfold. If you have a guess, Tarek says, anyone else want to guess? Yep. Me is a good one too. Good guess. FU. Justin said, yeah, Justin, that's it. Yeah, no, a lot of smart people here. Yeah, it's no, right? And I think about that all the time. It's like saying no to opportunities. FU would be hilarious, but was it? I was like, that's right. It's fuck you. But no, it's no. A huge mistake that I've made so many times over again that I could tell my past self is like saying no to more things. Cause like every time you say yes to something, you're basically giving up a future opportunity, right? So by saying yes to something today, that's one more thing you probably can't say yes to down the road. Or you say yes to everything, but you get to a point where you're so overextended, scattered, and ineffective that you're not good at anything. And so just like a power of focus, that also means as far as how you focus on different opportunities that come your way and being more focused, and saying no to more projects and things like that. And it's really hard to do, but like, saying no more often is just a very, very valuable thing. So I want to share that as well. And, but then the focusing is so good. Like I think about that, Justin, just as to I'm really enjoying this call already because it's kind of more conversational, but I may think there's a lot of value hopefully being shared. I mean, I was talking about with Laura again last night because it's like I could just run Copy Accelerator with you. I've got RMBC kind of running in the background. It makes me a couple of sales a day. And then I write copy for people, right? And I'm like, I can literally do that and be like mostly retired right now. But it's like I'm also doing the personal brand stuff and I'm relaunching the freelancer stuff in a pretty big way. But even then I'm like, I need to like be more cognizant of that because it's like there's a trade-off between, yeah, I want to affect all these people and I enjoy sharing content and doing these things, but it's like I don't need to be filling every hour of the day. It's like I can, I could be really fulfilled and make lots of money and help lots of people without need to take on like 10 more tasks or things in my life. And so that's something I still battle with, but then I go back to getting the power of focus and I have to remind myself of that like every year, basically. But it's a valuable thing that I do remind myself of.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big focus of mine, I would say, over the last 2 years. Like right when we started Copy Accelerator, I was running a previous coaching program that was pretty similar to Copy Accelerator, where we met every week on Zoom kind of thing. And I remember once Copy Accelerator kind of took off, I stopped that one. And it was kind of hard to do because I was making, I don't know, 400 grand a year off of it. It's like pretty easy to do. It's good money. And I stopped that because I saw right away the potential with Copy Accelerator. I was like, Copy Accelerator has the chance to be a lot bigger, impact a lot more people. Because me and you together was just way more effective than me by myself. And so, I mean, one of the things I did there for, I don't know, from 2019 all the way till just this month when I started launching my 1,000 buyers a day course, was my sole focus was Copy Accelerator. I really didn't do it. I did some small like client work and some consulting stuff, but like Copy Accelerator was my full focus. And I think it shows because we grew Copy Accelerator freaking quickly to 100, I don't know, however 110 members. And then we got like 50 light members. And now we're kind of expanding on other stuff that Copy Accelerator is going to offer. That probably would not have happened if I was trying to do 2 other businesses or anything like that. So, I mean, you end up getting, I think you get a much higher peak if you really focus on one thing. And it really doesn't matter where you're at. Like you look at someone like Sam Ovens, who for years just sold one course for $2,000, had nothing else, and just absolutely crushed it. Yeah. It makes so much sense to really just focus on one thing.
Yeah, 100%. Another one that I have that I wanted to share is kind of the number one skill, I think, for people who want to be successful. I put it in business, but this is really in general. And my hint was, right, it's not selling, creating, leading, managing, empathy, writing, hustling, or anything else you're thinking of right now. But the number one skill, I think, that I just see this so often. I've been guilty of this, but it wasn't a huge problem of mine, but I've had it, but I still see it, and I see it detrimental to people all the time, is not being able to take criticism and not being able to take feedback. I think that's just like, it's fucking crazy to me. It's such a block from people, and it's so detrimental to them. And this is true whether you're an employee or a copywriter or you're a business owner, whatever it is. I mean, Justin, we see it with some Copy Accelerator members sometimes, where we have to really break down these walls of resistance. If some people, they'll ask for feedback on their copy and we'll give it, but instead of listening, they'll just be really defensive about everything in their copy. But it's like, you're not going to get better or improve your copy if you're just pushing back, right? Every time. So, I've seen it with copywriters. I've seen it with, I can think of a guy who worked with me and who basically got to a pretty high position in one of my companies. And this guy just like could not take criticism. He was so defensive all the time. And it basically ended up driving him out of our company. And he could have been helping to run like a successful company. But like, you just have to, I still take criticism and feedback. I mean, when I work with like V-Shred and write copy, like Nick and Vince, especially Nick Daniel, he's a very brutal copy chief, and like he'll tear into some of the stuff that I do to where like I'll push back on stuff where I'm like, I don't agree, but like I'm also like, there's some things that he points out, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point, I should have thought of that and put that in there, and I didn't. And just being able to take that feedback and not take it personally is seriously probably one of the most underrated but most important skills you can have, because that's how you get better, it's how you improve, and people want to work with you. If I feel like every time I gotta give somebody feedback or try to make them better, they just fight me and like push back, it's like really draining for me, and I'm gonna stop trying to help them over time. Like I'm like, I don't want to have to use my energy trying to help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. So I just really think, that's a really vital one that I think people should really, really honestly self-reflect on, and really try to be open to receiving feedback and criticism, and then being thankful for it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially if you're paying someone to give you feedback, or you have some really good copywriter or someone who knows what they're doing, and you ask them for feedback and they offer to do it, 100% you should be take the role of the student and just listen, instead of thinking you know better. That's usually where it tends to come from, where it's like, I don't want somebody telling me what to do, or I know better. Like I actually bought a copy critique from a woman who I had no idea who she was, but I just wanted to get a woman's perspective on it because the product was for women. And she actually gave me some pretty brutal feedback and like kind of tore my copy apart. And I remember like part of me was thinking like, fuck you, like, you know who I am? Like, but then I came to my senses and it was more like, thought about how you just said, and I was like, yeah, she actually is right. I missed on this. Like, basically the copy sounded way too masculine, and it wasn't feminine enough, and it was going to all women. So, but she was right, because once I changed it and made it a lot more feminine, it ended up working like crazy. So, you really do have to break down the ego barriers and allow yourself to be coachable. That's a huge point.
Yeah, it's so important, man. That's a funny story, but I totally get it. Yeah, even Yi, who I talk about as one of my early mentors, like same thing, and he would give feedback. And this was after I was having all the success on ClickBank, and like almost every time though, like the feedback was good. And it turns out once I actually embraced it. So yeah, that's a huge one.
So one thing I want to hit on is something I've talked about in my emails a lot is that your business can't be the only thing in your life. This is something I battle a lot because when I don't have something to do, my default nature is to sit down at the computer and work. And I went for many, many years working a lot more than I do now. So back in like 2015, 16, 17, I was the guy who was like working 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. kind of straight every day. That was including like Saturdays and Sundays. I did kind of a similar thing when I was first starting out and learning copywriting. The interesting thing is you can get away with this for a while. You can get away with it for a number of years. But the more I realize it now, though, you're going to hit a wall. It's basically one of those things, like I always say, it works until it doesn't. And you get to the point where you just physically and mentally can't do it anymore. And your work really starts to suffer. And then you really become demotivated. You have no interest in what you're doing. You fall into a big rut. The more I've kind of focused on this and focused on actually putting more time aside for doing things I actually just simply enjoy. They don't even have to. I always had a big issue with. I always felt like I had to be productive. So like, I wouldn't let myself just watch an episode of The Office. I forced myself to watch like a documentary because I was like, well, now I'm learning something. And it's like, well, if I want to watch an episode of The Office, like watch an episode of The Office. So yeah, I highly recommend adding in time during your week where you're just simply doing stuff because you enjoy it. That could be working out. That could be going for walks. That could be hanging out at the park. It could be whatever, doing stuff with your buddies. Whatever it is, it needs to be in there because if your whole life revolves around work every single day, 7 days a week, it doesn't work. Eventually you hit the wall and it does not end well.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one. And I was kind of the same way, and especially with the Lions publishing stuff. And even before that, when I, as a freelancer, trying to scramble and, but I've talked about the paradoxical nature of downtime, which is that, you need to have downtime to be your most productive. So like downtime leads to productivity. And I think that's like a really, really important thing. I mean, for me now, like I'm like, I basically don't work at night. I stop at like whenever I stop, anywhere from 4 or 5 most days. Maybe I'll go to 5:30, and then I like really vehemently just like won't work at night. Like I might work one night this week because of like the event coming up. But obviously when we're doing the event next week and we'll be together in Austin and that goes into the night, like that's fine. But like as far as like during the work week goes, like normally, like just my normal day to day, like I just like no. And but that keeps me, I'm like, I literally cannot tell you. It's been years and years and years since I've woken up in the morning on like a weekday though, and not been like excited to get started with my day and do all the stuff that we do. Like I cannot think of a time I've had trouble getting out of bed. But a huge part of that is because I'm not burned out because I have this balance, this work-life balance. And so I think, yeah, that's a really valuable one. And yeah, and give yourself permission to just be happy and enjoy the moment, like watching The Office or reading a book or reading or going for a walk or whatever. Man, that's so important. So yeah, I think that's great advice, Justin. Another one for me would probably be like the importance of your network. I mean, a lot of people who are on this call know that, right? But like, the network is so valuable that, I learned that in probably after my first mastermind, right? And I've written about this profusely, and it's why I got so pissed when that one guy who doesn't, copywriter doesn't like me, was like, oh, networking is like a dumb way to get clients. And it was like, oh my God. Yeah. Tim Nolan, don't you troll me. Networking never works, he said. It's like, it's amazing. And I think of anything like right now, right? Like, and I've built this network over several years, and of course I've had success and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, if I wanted to if I needed money, like, and I wanted to find a copy client, I could just go to my network and get a client like instantly. If I needed to solve a problem in my business with like, media buying, I can go find a media buyer instantly. If I want to help with tax stuff, I can find somebody. If I need help with relationships, like anything I need help with, I can do that. Right. The network is just so vital, and having a good network and knowing that you have these people that you can solve your crowdsourcing, right? All a good network is crowdsourcing. It's like allowing you to use a collective wisdom, experience, and relationships of a large amount of people to like have access to an exponential universe of people who can all help you to solve your biggest problems, challenges, and pain points. And then, of course, part of that is that you're not just taking, you're giving too. And so being giving and doing introductions and building relationships. But people ask about networking. It's just like, networking to me is not like, I've never been an intentional networking. I don't go to like an event with like, I'm going to meet 10 relationships that can help me. And I'm not strategic about it, but it's like showing up. And then like someone asked about the digital age. I mean, these Facebook groups, Justin and Stefan Talk Copy, look at John Caprani and what he's done. Kimmy Do, Gurleen, Lootfeed, like there's all these people, a bunch of people, Sip Sumama, Jeremy Reed, like a lot of people on this call right now show up to stuff regularly. So like, I know who they are, and like, they're a part of my network, and I'm a part of their network. Feed, yeah, you too, buddy. Like a bunch of these people, like really everyone, Bailey, like I recognize virtually every name in this chat, right? And it's from these kind of calls we do, but also Justin, Stefan Talk Copy, for some people it's Copy Accelerator, and so to me, networking is just like building relationships, like being present, chatting with people, like being parts of a community. And then I think that over time, expands and whatever, but having a network is really, to me, one of the fastest ways or shortcuts to getting ahead more. But it's not also, though, if you drink cheap wine with realtors, that's a really good way to build your network too. Yeah.
One thing I'll add to what you just said, I did not have this written down, but it's something I've talked about before, is not burning bridges in this industry. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, probably like 2010 or so, I made the mistake. So when I launched my first offer, I made the mistake of copying a bunch of ads that Mike Geary was running for his ads and running them for mine. Honestly, it was like just stupid and thought he wasn't going to find out. So I did that, and like I think there was some like Google group with like Mike and a bunch of the other big ClickBank offers, and all of them just started like apparently going off on me in this group, and all of them basically kind of like blackballed me from the fitness health info product market, kind of like affiliate network, where like nobody would promote my stuff for years. That basically went on for like 3 or 4 years, and then I eventually emailed Mike a couple of years later, apologized to him, told him the whole story. Mike was cool about it. And what's interesting is at the time though, when I was like originally doing that, my whole thought was like, I'm running cold traffic. I don't need these guys. Fuck them. I'll do all this on my own. And yeah, kind of my thought was like, I just don't need these guys. And then I don't know, 2015 or so, when Patriot Health Alliance started taking off, Mike actually became one of our first affiliates, did amazing as an affiliate. Our offer crushed to his list. And then having Mike promote that, like everybody follows like what Mike does. So like 9 or 10 other people in the health space started promoting it because Mike did. And since then, Mike and I have actually become pretty good friends. We text all the time. I go out to his house like twice a year and hang out in Utah. Very, very different. Could have been a very, very different story had I not actually fixed that relationship, or if Mike had no interest in kind of chatting with me after all that went down. But yeah, I learned a very valuable lesson there. Like, this is a very, very small industry. And I would go through gyrations to make sure my reputation stays strong and it doesn't get crushed with something like that.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And I think people have long memories. Like, there's only a few people who have really sort of left a bad taste in my mouth in this industry. And like, but those people, it's like, I'll never forget that, And I mean, maybe some of them could come back, some of them can't, but like, you remember stuff. And I think tangential to that too is being like, I try to treat everybody with respect and, as a peer, basically, because everyone is my peer. But B, another interesting thing of our industry is like the rise and fall can both be so meteoric, right? So there's like folks in this chat today who are like starting out, who are like whatever, who in 2 years or 3 years from now are going to be running like 8 or 9 figure offers or doing these crazy things. And like, you don't really know. It just happens. Like, that's what I love about our industry is you can go from the bottom to the top really fast. There's also people in this industry who go from the top to the bottom kind of fast when they burn bridges and they're dicks and all that kind of stuff. So, you don't want to go from the top to the bottom, but I would be like I just would never big time anybody. Like, that doesn't mean I can respond to everybody all the time and stuff like that if they message me or whatever. But like, I'm never trying to big time anybody because you just never know what's going to happen. There's so many stories. I mean, think Craig Clemens, right? He's like runs Golden Hippo, $400 million a year company, one of the most respected people. And he was like an affiliate manager, like 7 years ago for like for Double Your Dating or whatever it was. And he was basically an affiliate manager. And so imagine some of the people who were dicks to Craig back then, who then he became Craig Clemens of Golden Hippo. And I'm sure Craig would never say it, but I'm sure he remembers those people. So you just never know. And it's much better to just be respectful. Yeah. Don't be a dick, Kim. Exactly. 100%. And, and even like with podcasts, it's really, really tangential, quick one. Like, I'll go on almost anyone's podcast, even if I have no idea if they're not big, or like, I don't care about that. And I think I heard Roland Fraser say that he would do that a while ago. And it was the same philosophy though. He's like, all these maybe like they have nothing today, but they become like the next Tim Ferriss show in 5 years and they want to be on there. And like, so just the same thing, you just don't know. So might as well, treat everyone with compassion, respect, and dignity.
Good point. One thing I want to touch on is a little more strategic business wise. And this really came to me. Travis Sago and Jordan Hall have probably been the most instrumental in influencing how I view this. And it's really about how to make your offer as simple as possible for people to say yes to. It's interesting that I did so well selling stuff for so long, and I really never gave a lot of thought to the offer. And then I heard a lot of the stuff that Travis talked about and Jordan's talked about as well, and completely fundamentally changed the way I think about offers, especially info product offers where you're usually asking people to kind of do something. So a couple of the things that they talk about really, really big is Travis has this theory, or not theory, just like a concept where he calls, I think it's called Hell Island and Heaven Island. And the idea is that when people are in hell, which is their kind of current pain points, they'll do a lot more to get out of hell than they will to get to heaven. So like people who are fat and overweight don't want to be overweight and don't want to be fat more than they want to be skinny. It's a very kind of like different way of looking at it. And like someone who's buying a biz op offer, much more than wanting to be rich and all of that, they really just want to get out of the current situation they're in. And that's really kind of influenced my decision around a lot of stuff, is really focusing on the current pain that they're in, the frustrations, the worries, all that stuff. And the other stuff really boils down to kind of the one thing principle, which is how can you teach them one thing that will get them the result they're looking for. So Jordan gave a really good example of this in my 1,000 Buyers a Day course, where he said his first book was his first book in the women's relationship niche he was going to put together was going to be like this encyclopedia of relationships. And he was like, I'm going to give them like all this information about how to have the best relationship, blah, blah, blah. And he finally like came to the realization that like, that's not what anybody wants. There's a reason that most of the best offers focus on one specific pain point. So I think his basically goes after women who are like in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who are looking to get, either they're coming out of a bad relationship, coming out of a divorce, looking to get back into dating. Everything has kind of changed dating wise nowadays. There's so much stuff that's online and texting, and they're not really familiar with it. And their big problem is finding a quality man. So Jordan's whole thing was about that, and not about the 900 other things that go into a relationship. And that was a big kind of change for me. And then to go one layer deeper was making the product as simple as possible for the person buying it. So like Jordan's there, he actually gave a really good example on there's a product in the, I think it's in the divorce knit, or not divorce. It's like fixing your relationship with your husband or your wife or whatever. And most of those are like, go to therapy, talk about this for 6 or 7 weeks, go do this. Like there's a lot of shit to do. And there's one in that niche, I can't remember what it's called, but the whole idea behind it is basically like you just do these couple things a day or say these couple phrases, and it starts to like naturally repair your relationship. That's really what people want. Like they don't want 900 things they have to do and a bunch of stuff they have to do. They want the quick fix. They want the one thing that's going to fix stuff. So yeah, just kind of that changing of my thoughts on the actual offer and how important the actual offer is has really been a big game changer.
Yeah, I love that. One way I put it is like, if you can't describe the product or service that you're selling clearly and concisely in less than 30 seconds, then you're never going to sell much of it. Right? Like, cause you have that sometimes when you talk to people and like, oh, what are you doing? And they're like, kind of this convoluted thing, which is going to pull like a flow chart, or even for an offer, right? It's like, well, there's this part of it and there's coaching, but then you go on the Zoom call, but there's these modules and and it's like, if you can't explain to me clearly and concisely in 30 seconds, like what the offer is, what I get, whatever, then it's just like, you're not, like I said, you're not going to sell much of it, because people, if you don't understand it well enough to share with others, and if it's not a well enough structured offer, you can't expect others to kind of connect all these dots for you. So I think that's a really good one. What was one I just had that was really good here? I mean, a bunch, but I mean, one I want to bring up too is this one's kind of like, I don't know if this is cynical or not, but one thing I've thought about is how there's certain people, like this is one of the fascinations from my email about the BoJack Horseman rule of human nature and what it means for dealing with negative people. But basically, BoJack Horseman is a TV show on Netflix. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. You have the first 2 seasons are mediocre because they didn't know what they were doing. They thought maybe they were creating like a South Park comedy thing, and then they realized they were actually creating a really dark existential series. And it's like, if you're gonna watch it, you have to go past the first 2 seasons. And I promise you, if you go into like 3, 4, 5, it's like one of the best. It's one of my 5 best shows of all time, in my opinion. But and the character is like this flawed character, and does he really change? Like maybe a little bit, but the whole thing is like, can somebody change? And that's a huge part of it. And this is a crossover episode feed. I love it. Thank you for that BoJack call out. But one thing, I mean, I've just found is like, there are, for me personally, at least, I don't know if this is good advice or not, I'll be honest, but like some people who are negative, or who are, habitually excuse makers, or who are always, things are always happening to them and they're always sort of playing like the victim or whatever it is. Like, if they're always like that and you give them an opportunity or two and they never change, right? Like they're probably never going to change, honestly. Like, it's like, and maybe they will. And it's like, you can be an optimist and want to think, good thoughts for, humanity and all that. But like, it's like for you and your effort and your time and your energy, it's like, do you want to focus on those people who the odds are overwhelmingly high that they're never going to change? Like, right at a certain point in life, it's just not going to happen. Or do you want to spend your time working with the people who are already changing, who are aware and things like that. So it's just a really vital thing for me is like not losing your, like I talked about this with, we talked to Brooks about this a couple weeks earlier. There's somebody who kind of was just like habitually has like inside issues for a long time. This wasn't like a member, but it was somebody that sort of wanted to join but couldn't. And I was like, he was spending all his time on this person, but it was like, I would spend less time with this person and more time on all the people who are really bought in and who are actually, doing the things they need to be doing. And like, you can have way more of an impact on those people versus like the ones who sort of have clearly shown that they're not going to change their stripes. So it's about energy, right? And managing your energy and your effort and your mental power and all this stuff, and not becoming drained, trying to turn like I don't know, whatever, like a rock into a ball of ice. That's a weird analogy. I was trying to find some colloquial thing to say, but you guys get it.
So what I have written down that I wanted to share is there's a couple of people have already mentioned the book Ready, Fire, Aim in here, which everyone who's in this business should read. It's Michael Masterson's book. It's amazing. One of the concepts he talks about in there that really helped me, and I wish I would have known it sooner, was when going from like 0 to 1 million with your business and then going from like 1 million to 10 million, it's a very, very different thing. And this is something I have always struggled with because I was always good at copy and marketing and coming up with products and selling. So I had no problem doing the 0 to $1 million or 0 to 2 million or whatever it was. Once I got to that point, I had no fucking clue what to do because I had never actually built a company. I'd never hired people. I didn't know anything about operations and logistics and infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I still don't. And that's why, like, when I grew my supplement company, Patriot Health Alliance, and we grew that to like 23 million, my main focus with that was looking to partner with someone who could fill in all the gaps that I wasn't good at. And so when I partnered with Aaron and Alan Baylor on that, they were already really good at logistics and fulfillment and all the infrastructure, and they had the employees already, and they were good at traffic as well. So I was just able to stay in my lane doing marketing, copy, product creation, stuff like that, emails, and they were able to fill in all the other stuff. And that's why we grew that company from basically $1 million to 23 million in 3 years, was because it was such a natural fit and we kind of had all bases covered. But yeah, if you can't, getting out of the gate is all about making sales. It's acquiring customers and making sales, but getting to that next level, that's where all the stuff, because if you don't have the infrastructure and you don't have the team and you don't have all the proper stuff in place, that's when everything starts to break. It's like a Ferrari going 100 miles an hour and like hubcaps start falling off and doors start rattling and bolts are popping off. And that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, I've even I experienced and kind of was reminded of this lesson even this year, partnering with Cody on some of the supplement stuff, because Cody's one of my really good friends and very smart marketer, and he had a supplement company that would do 3 to 6 million a year every year for the last several years, right? And I'm like, cool, I'm going to provide like copy for these new offers, and we'll be able to scale this, and it's going to be like sick and whatever. And the copy worked, right? We got Chris Wright, who wrote that BioHarmony offer. We have some other ones. And it's like, we're tracking to do 15 to 20 million this year for that supplement company, which is great. But what I kind of quickly realized, and my whole thing was like, Cody has this existing infrastructure. I provide the copy. He plugs it into the infrastructure. That's all I have to do. I'll make a bunch of money. He'll make a bunch of money. We'll grow. It's great. But then I realized, like, as we got to 10 million and beyond and all these things started to break, I'm like, oh shit, like, well, Cody's never run like a $10 million supplement company before. And he's never run a $20 million supplement company before. And so I realized I had to come in and kind of share more of my experience to be like, oh, hey, here's some stuff that's going to happen. And it happened, right? That's what's funny is like the same stuff happens. It's pretty predictable what's going to happen between, 0 to like 5 million, 0 to 1 million and 1 to 10 million and 10 to 20 million. It's like these predictable things happen. But if somebody hasn't done it, like they're just not aware of it. So it's not a knock on Cody at all. It's just like, I had to realize like, oh yeah, well, this guy's never done this before. I need to help him. And actually, Vinny Fisher gave me that advice too. Cause when my first health supplement company was on the track to do 23 million that second year, and I was going to partner with somebody else who had like a good background as like a COO of another company, but had never run a health offer before. And Vinny Fisher was like, well, how many health supplement offers does that guy scale to 8 figures and beyond? And it was like, well, none, but he's like a COO. And he's like, yeah, COO, but he has no experience actually. You've already done it. Why are you going and partnering with this guy? Why don't you just focus on what you already have and like, scale that more? And I honestly didn't listen to Vinny. And then I didn't scale my current offer as much as I could have, or that business. And then the other thing was kind of like a shit show. And, Vinny could have saved me a ton of, he tried to save me a lot of wasted time. And I probably could have made way more money if I just listened to that advice. But I think, yeah, that Ready, Fire, Aim is so good. Just really, I don't have a copy in San Diego, and I'm on see if it's not sold out because everyone in this chat ordering it. I'm going to get a copy for here after this call too.
Nice. Yeah, I highly recommend that book. One other thing I have written down that I want to address is something that I learned from Jenny Thompson a couple of years ago. Jenny was the former CEO of New Market Health, which was an Agora division. I think their name is still the same, but she helped grow that company. I think she got them from wherever they're at up to like 60, 70 million. She was super, super smart. We did a consulting day with her the one time, and I remember it just stuck out so much to me. She mentioned, she's like, this business is all about acquiring customers. She's like, that's the business you are in when you have a direct response business. She's like, it's the thing that fuels everything. It should be the number one focus every single day in your business is acquiring new customers. And she kind of went on to explain why, which is like, because getting the back end right is not that hard. Like, I mean, you can get like C-level copywriters and get the back end and sell more products and that type of stuff. But acquiring the customer is the hardest part of this business. And it's also obviously the most important. But when you see, it's interesting, when I had my first coaching program, one of the guys in there was running probably a $20 million business. And I used to harp on this all the time about keep your focus on the front end, keep focus on acquiring customers. And probably about 4 or 5 months in, he emailed me and mentioned that they had been transitioning a bunch of their focus to back end offers, and we're trying to get some of those running. And you realize basically how much money they lost because the front end kind of dwindled. It wasn't anywhere near where it normally was. And he basically sent me an email saying, he's like, it never hit me what you were saying before until I just kind of saw it firsthand, what just happened to our business. He's like, we just ended up losing a ton of money because we lost focus of acquiring customers on the front end. And he was like, as soon as we have that back and the customers are coming in hundreds or even thousands every day, he's like, everything just runs so much more smoothly. So yeah, realizing if you are in the direct response business, you are in the customer acquisition business. That was a big one for me.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I was talking about this with Laura and I want to do an email on it and I haven't yet. It was this idea of turning your failures into assets as well. I really like this idea of like that your failures are actually future assets all the time. What I mean by this is essentially like when you fail, if you learn from it and don't repeat the mistake, that's valuable. But beyond that, even like the story of that failure and what you learn and your ability to then share it with others, like that failure can even become an asset in that respect too. So if you look at failures that way as these future assets that are going to make you more money because you now possess them, like I just think that's a really cool way of looking at your failures, and it really helps me to not ever really feel like I failed at something. And to relate to that too, I mean, just a quick one, it is interesting, like, and I told, like, I think even from a marketing perspective, like, like Laura for Eden Beauty Company, which is going to do, over $1 million this year in her first year, and it's not super profitable, but it's profitable. But I was like, yeah, but I'm like, honestly too, like, you've got me, like, as our, like, I'm bringing in, millions of dollars in income for our family. And I was like, you don't need to be super profitable right now. Like, you can focus on growth and like, building that. And then honestly, even from potentially sell this company and like, if you get to 10 million in revenue, like, so understanding, I guess, from that perspective for her, it was like, knowing what the goal is of the business, like, right, for her, like, actually it's really as simple as that, right? Are you building a company to sell it or to make it like to cash flow profit business and understand the goal? And like, there's really different things there. So if you're building a business that needs to make a bunch of money and needs to bring in income or to make you rich, that's one thing. But if you're able to build a business that you're just trying to get to a high revenue number with, like, and then sell, like, that's a totally another thing. And like having a clear picture of what you're trying to do with your business, ideally early on, like Copy Accelerator. Justin and I are very clear, like, we're not building Copy Accelerator to sell it. There's no part of us like, how do we sell it? Like, we're the business and we're not, trying to sell Copy Accelerator. My health supplement stuff with Cody, not trying to sell it, not interested in that. My call center, yeah, I'd like to sell that in a couple of years because that's like a business with a CEO and COO and stuff like that. So understanding that, and that really affects your decisions. But a lot of times people start with like direct response offers and funnels, and then they're kind of thinking that they could sell it down the road and they make these decisions, but it's like, you're never going to sell that because you're never going to get what you want. I mean, I looked at selling my $23 million health supplement company to Agora, and Agora looked at it and was like, oh, we give you like, I don't know, like $3 or $4 million for it, which is like a lot of money, right? But basically we want the continuity stuff and we want the list, and like, we don't even care about your offers really. I realized like nobody was going to buy this $23 million supplement company for anything close to that amount. And I was like, well, it makes way more sense for me to keep it. But if I had known that from the beginning and not thought I was building something that I could sell, I would have maybe squeezed way more profit out of it and had way more money in the bank. So I think that's an important thing to think about as well.
Yeah, that took me a long time to learn too, that a company that's sellable and a company that's a cash flow business are two very different things. Yeah. One's not better than the other. It just depends on what you want. There's a lot of businesses like ours, Copy Accelerator, or like me doing my newsletter, you doing courses, like they're great cash flow businesses. They're not sellable assets though.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good point.
Thank you.
I'm trying to see if I have anything else. I don't know if I do.
I have, I
Yeah,
mean,
I really don't have anything else. So
the two others I have from the email, one is about, I made a whole YouTube video about this. I won't go on for too long, but going back to like don't get too excited about equity, especially as like, freelancers and things like that. Like most of the time the equity is not going to ever actually be worth anything for the reasons I just said. A lot of the businesses that you're dealing with are never going to sell. And they're not going to like, having equity doesn't mean you get paid. Having equity is really only valuable if like you potentially, if there's a liquidation event, if the company's going to sell. Most companies aren't going to sell. If they do sell, it might be for a small amount. And you only get paid like with equities if the company is doing distributions, and it's basically, but even then, if you have a small chunk of equity, you probably don't get to decide when those distributions are happening. So like, if the company's like, once a quarter we do distributions, so everyone with equity gets one, and we basically, here's how we calculate it, maybe then it makes sense. But a lot of times people just get this idea of equity and get so excited, but then it never actually amounts to anything. It's like almost like a trick to get you to take less money for the promise of like a future upside, but the future upside hardly ever is going to come. So don't be in love with equity. That's one. And then the other one I have is just that idea of delegation and leverage. And I want to talk about that. But first, Justin, I know obviously George had passed away. Do you have a dog at this point right now, or are you dogless?
No, I don't. They both sadly had to be put down in the last year, so just me at the house.
I
It's
imagine
an empty house without two Great Danes, that's for sure. It's very different. Steve was chiming in with yours, like basically with equity, if it was worth anything, they wouldn't give it away.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Equity, it really depends what kind of equity. Like if you're a partner starting the company, very different than if you're kind of coming in as a consultant or whatever, and they're giving you just kind of like a small piece. That's a very different situation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you're like an employee and getting paid a salary and you also get like some equity, like sure, take it, because you never know, right? Like you go to work for some startup and they're like, oh, your salary is X and you're going to get like equity. Like, well, certainly might as well take that. But if you're like a freelancer and they're like, hey, like, I want you to write copy for us full time, can't pay you a whole lot, but we'll give you like 5% of the business, and you're like, ooh, I'd be an owner of a business. And it's like, that's just going to be a giant waste of your time.
I agree on that.
Yeah. I mean, if you suffer from imposter syndrome. I've written about it. Justin, have you ever suffered from imposter syndrome?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've written about it a lot as well. Yeah, I mean, it still hits me sometimes. I don't think it's anything that ever goes away. It just gets better. But yeah, I definitely have. I mentioned in I think it was in one of my emails or one of my newsletters that I wrote about, it definitely popped up when I met Joe Polish for the first time. It popped up when I met Clayton Makepeace. Clayton, I was actually so nervous to talk to him that I didn't even talk to him, which is really sad now because he passed away. But yeah, it's interesting too when you look at it from the other perspective, because I know when I go to events now, like people feel that same way around me, where like they'll just kind of hover around me, and then because they're too nervous to actually come up and like say hi. And it's weird because I don't think of myself like that, and I'm sure Joe and Clayton don't think of themselves like that. But so it's such like a fabrication, and the idea that you can't just like go up and say hi to someone is really crazy. So yeah.
Yeah, and I just go back to like, I think if you think back to all of your interactions with all of these people who you thought were sort of a big deal, my assumption is that the overwhelming majority of the times when you talk to those people, when you did talk to them, they were super nice, right? It's like, how often, maybe like one time they were a little bit like, oh, hey, cool, man. And like, you felt a little awkward, like, all right. Like how often were they like, why are you talking to me? Like you're like a bug and I'm a big deal, right? Nobody, like very few people were total assholes. Like I guess Ellen DeGeneres apparently is, you can't make eye contact with her, but that's about it. So it's like, part of it comes back to your own self-worth again and thinking about that, but realistically, nobody really is that way. But yeah, I think we've all suffered from imposter syndrome. I would have it. I mean, I had it before the 100 million mastermind thing, Joel Marion's mastermind a little bit. I wrote about that. I was like shaving and had a hand around my neck, like as I was shaving, and realized I was like choking myself, and it was like a manifestation of my anxiety. And that was like less than a year ago. And,
well, really, you think about it. So it's interesting because the imposter stuff really boils down to you believing you're not good enough to talk to someone because your accomplishments are not where theirs are. That's really usually what it boils down to. And that's just inherently wrong because it's like we all have the same actual worth as human beings. Our accomplishments are different. Like I might be more successful than you might be more successful than me, but our inherent worth as human beings is all equal. No matter if it's someone who's literally homeless and on the street or Mark Cuban who's worth $6 billion. The inherent worth is there. So yeah, it really is interesting how it's basically us. I think it honestly tends to happen a lot more with men because men are just already in such a mindset of comparing their accomplishments to other men. It's just like a dick measuring contest that's kind of out in the open. Yeah, it's definitely very much tied to worth, and then you kind of looking at accomplishment, success, status as what actually matters and not you as a person.
Yeah. And I think, again, there's a lot of very financially successful people who are very unhappy and lots of people who aren't, millionaires who are extremely happy. It's just really, there's a lot of ways to measure your value and worth. Like even if I have a higher net worth than somebody, like, I don't know, I wish I had more time to meditate and I don't, maybe they're going to meditate. Like we all have our strengths and our weaknesses and everything like that. But I think Justin, I love what you said, and especially as a philosophy major. But the idea of everyone has the same equal inherent kind of value and worth. And I think that's if you just kind of go through life with that presupposition, I think that just is an amazing place to be at, and will do a lot for you. Jess Courtney just said, hold up. I know what's going on. The one other one I wanted to share real quick, and this is like, I think maybe my last one.
Let's do one more and then we'll wrap it up.
I wish it was like the best, most profound one or something, but it's not. It's just one I haven't gotten to. But I do think like the idea of like delegation and leverage are so vital. So it's two ideas, but like on the delegation side, especially as you move into, well, really anybody, but you have, if you really want to be more productive and level and scale up and all that, like you kind of have to learn how to delegate and to trust others to do a job. And you have to also trust that you have to accept that if you have like, 5 people or 10 people who are all going to do the same jobs you would normally have done, and they do them at 90% of the effectiveness, even 80% of the effectiveness that you would have done them, you still come out really far ahead. Versus like if like if I did it, it would be perfect. Somebody else does it and it's only 90% or 80% as perfect as it would have been. But now if you have, again, 5 people, 10 people, 20 people who are all just like doing that consistently, like you're it's like, here's you doing it all yourself. Here's like the team. And so you start off the same and the team's like here. And that's really how you get successful. And it's super hard though. It's super hard to do that. I for my supplement company, I remember the first time I went to that mastermind and I left the team, and I would get hit up on Slack about every question, and I was giving answers, and they were afraid to do anything without getting my approval and things like that. And finally I realized like, I can't go on like this or I'm never going to have freedom. I can't travel. I can't do anything. I have to empower these people. And like, I basically said to them, like, look, like I'm going to empower you. Like I can't be making all these decisions. And like, I hired you, you've been with me for a while. Like this is, what you're doing. Like I'm empowering you to make the decision. If it's the wrong decision, that's okay. Most of the time it'll be right. I'm not going to chime in. And then they would still put stuff in Slack, and I would want to jump in and like answer questions, but I would force myself not to. And I'd come back an hour later, and like, turns out they collaboratively got together and found like the solution. And most of the time it was a solution I would have suggested anyway. So realizing that I didn't have to be there micromanaging, looking over it. If you really want to get ahead and build and grow and scale things, you have to like empower your team and trust them, and then be okay. Like you have to be okay with the fact that sometimes they're going to make a decision that's different than what you would have made. and that sometimes it may not work out as great as it could have, but you'll come out in the long run so far ahead by doing that. So I think that's a really important one.
Awesome. If you guys want to post something in the chat, we're going to wrap this up. If you want to post something in the chat about, give us one or two of your biggest takeaways from this, the call that we did today. I'd be curious to hear.
The ninth wonder is leverage, Alejandro, which is then how do you leverage things? And like, for me, that's just like, for example, sell your sawdust, right? Like everything I do, recording stuff, and then I can take it and repurpose it multiple ways. Like, but yeah, that's the ninth wonder.
So a couple of things coming in, focus on one thing, taking feedback, do not spend as much as you earn, flexibility is required, focus on one thing. A lot of the people saying that. The power of no and sticking with one thing, focus, understanding your self-worth, understanding your customer might not want to go to heaven. Yep. Always stay humble. These are coming in too fast. Partner with someone who's further down the road. Don't measure your net worth, your worth with your dick. There you go. Networking is key. Taking time off so you're more productive. Definitely. Focus on one thing. Feedback. Awesome. So you guys seem to definitely got a bunch out of it. Before we wrap up, like usual at the end of these, we're going to give you a little pitch on coming to the Copy Accelerator Light event, which is what, a week away?
Yeah, a week away is the night of next Wednesday evening, which we're working on some of our special surprises for that.
Yeah, we got some sweet surprises in the works. Let's see if they come through. So yeah, Copy Accelerator is next week, Thursday and Friday. It is a virtual event, which means it's going to be on Zoom. Steph and I have a studio in Austin here where we're going to be broadcasting it live from. The final day to sign up is this Friday.
Yeah.
And remember, you have to actually book a call with Blake from our team to see if you're a fit for the event if you haven't been to a previous event. If you've been to a previous event, you can just buy a ticket. Otherwise, you have to book a ticket. So, yeah, Friday is the final day because we have to turn our attention to actually running the event and putting it on. So we're not going to keep selling tickets next week. So if you're one of the people who's been sitting on the fence or you've been thinking about it and just haven't pulled the trigger, this would definitely be the time to do it. I'm gonna pull up the sales letter. We'll do a quick walkthrough of it. So yeah, it's actually 2.5 days. So it starts Wednesday night. We have a virtual Zoom cocktail party, which is gonna be really fun. We have like a bartender who's gonna be there mixing drinks. It'll be a really cool vibe. And then the event actually starts on Thursday. So Thursday, I'll scroll down and you'll see we have. Stefan and I are both presenting on Thursday. I'm doing a talk on upsells. Stefan and I are doing a combination one on story leads, which are just absolutely crushing in 2020. Stefan's also going to do one on, I think, like the 10 biggest split test wins we've had this year.
Yeah.
Really cool one that people can honestly just like steal from and use on their own offers.
Can I just want to tease one. There's like a legit, like a checkout button test that we just did on my stuff with Cody, that changing the text in the checkout button increased conversions by 25% on the checkout page.
Wow.
Literally just change like the word on the button, and I'll share what that is during my talk. But there's so many good ones. I love those because there's so many actionable things. There's a bunch of AOV boosters too. And it's like literally like that, the split test win talk, it's like literally take one of those things and apply it to your business if you're a business owner, or as a copywriter, tell one of your clients to do it, and like it works for them, and like you literally make back your investment in this event like 10, 100, 1,000 times over. And so I love that stuff. So I'm just getting super excited. I've been working on that one this week. It's gonna be dope.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Dan Ferrari's also talking on day one. Dan just crushes in financial. He's doing some stuff in BizOp. He's written in health. One of the best copywriters out there today. He's also starting his own, or already started his own fitness company with a couple partners that apparently he's doing pretty well already. So Dan's definitely has some cool stuff to share. He's gonna be talking about the big idea in copy and how to come up with a big idea. Emily Lark, one of my favorite people. She's just an amazing human being. She's going to talk about her offer and kind of her story she has an offer called Back to Life, which is basically a back pain offer, helps people with their back pain. She's going to talk about her story of how she kind of went from nothing to now having this offer that is crushing, doing 1,000 buyers a day. And she's got this crazy successful business. Her story, she's an amazing speaker too. She spoke at one of our previous masterminds. And she's really, really incredible. So super excited for that. Marcella Allison, the queen of the Titanides. She's written a ton of financial copy. She was 2018 Copywriter of the Year by AWAI. Lots of stuff in health and fitness, health and financial. Those are kind of her two main ones. She's going to be on a copy panel along with David Deutsch, who was actually my original copy mentor. I studied under David for a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And probably I would say one of the 10 best copywriters out there, and it has been for, 20 years. Really, really good. And then Carlene Anglade Cole. I've bought a bunch of Carlene's products that have like her controls and stuff like that back in the day. And I've always kind of studied her copy. Super smart. I know Stefan saw her at one of the Titans events speak, and he was like kind of blown away with some of the copy stuff she was talking about.
Yeah, man.
So she's going to be on the panel as well with David and Marcella. That's going to be a pretty amazing copy panel. They're basically going to be sharing what they see that's working right now. Amber Spears, just amazing in the affiliate world, knows tons about getting affiliate traffic with emails and getting more people to promote your stuff. She's going to do some kind of high level talks about what she sees working right now with affiliates and getting more people to mail for your offers. And last but not least, Mike Buontempo, who is a Copy Accelerator member. Mike runs a media buying agency, has multiple clients doing 500 plus sales a day in different niches, crushing it on YouTube right now. He's given a couple tips and talks to our group already on YouTube. I'm really excited for this because YouTube is probably, I would say, the biggest opportunity right now in terms of traffic for most companies. And he's really blowing it up, like I said, with multiple companies, because the compliance stuff on YouTube is nowhere near as strict as what it is on Facebook. And it's really kind of this gold mine right now. So hearing what Mike is doing and seeing some of the examples he's going to share of what's working with YouTube will be well worth it for a lot of people. I'll probably pay for the entire thing for a large majority of the people. So those are all the speakers. Like I said, we also have cocktail events going on virtually on Zoom. We have a kind of party at the end of the week that's going on Zoom. I think we already have, how many people bought a ticket so far? Like 100?
Yeah, almost like 100 on the dot.
Cool.
And we've got 131 applicants, including a bunch of people who I know Blake is still talking to. So yeah.
Yeah, so just a reminder, Friday of this week is the last day to buy a ticket. So if you want in, tickets for our events are normally $2,950. Since this one is a virtual event, we dropped the price to $1,450, so about half the price of what it normally is. And then we're also, for any copywriters, the matchmaking sessions are usually a huge hit, where we actually pair you up with business owners who are looking for copy. So we do those on both days. So if you are a copywriter who's looking for gigs, whether that's email, Facebook, long form stuff, writing leads, whatever it is, there's going to be, I don't know how many. Last one I had probably 20 plus business owners looking to hire copywriters, and many of them hired multiple copywriters. So it's not like they're just there to hire one. So yeah, you'll have a chance to meet them. You'll have a chance to talk with them on Zoom, and then also kind of get their contact info and follow up with them and potentially do some projects with them. So anything you want to add, Steph?
Yeah, I mean, just don't forget that the members area you get access to as well. Like all of the recordings of every call we've done. I mean, we just did one yesterday that was probably the most popular one we've done in a long time. We had over 100 of our kind of community on it. And it was all about the commonalities between a bunch of the most, like the top kind of weight loss offers on ClickBank right now, the supplement ones. So like Resurge, one called Proven, one called Love to Connect. But then we showed how those same commonalities can then be applied to sales letters and other niches as well in the structure. Yeah, Jazz is saying it's a great call. It was like really cool. I broke them down, and like that was just the one we did yesterday, but we literally do calls like that every week. So when you buy a ticket between now and when the event, basically until the event's over, you have access to that entire members area with all of his archives, all of the trainings, and I know it's like, honestly, it's priceless. I don't know what to say. It's like, it's worth several $100,000, but it's probably worth millions. But like, I don't know, like people have paid millions for it collectively over the last, year. And you get access to all of that, like when you get your ticket, which is pretty crazy. Plus even the networking, like the Copy Accelerator, you're in the Copy Accelerator Facebook group up until after the event. But we also made a special Facebook group just for attendees of the event. And that one has been everyone's introducing themselves, they're sharing stuff, they're talking. Like there's already a community being built and networking happening in the Facebook group for the event. And just being a part of that is a really tremendous value. Yeah, it's good vibes, Justin Lucas said. It's really been sick. I love it. Yeah, Tim says he's been cramming all the training in. So yeah, man, it's awesome.
Yeah, can you post in the group if you are coming to the event? I mean, sorry, not in the group. Post in the chat here if you're coming. Just say like, I'm coming. I'm curious how many people are. Awesome. Got a bunch of people.
Love it. Love it.
Marcus, Kimmy, Peter, Tim, Sal, Cody, Justin, Abby. Did I say that right? Abby? Yeah. Oh, no, they're going too fast. Jason, Katarina, Eric. I don't know how to say your name. Luffy, Daryl, Siraj. Is that how I say it?
Yeah.
Michael. Cool. Tons of them.
Yeah, a lot of people coming. Yeah, no big deal from Steve Gunn. I crammed the training in the members area before the last event. Since February, that content has made me over $10 million, no exaggeration. I mean, I don't know. So we go back to it's like I can't even tell you how much it's like worth. It's worth so much. Yeah, Steve. Now, of course, Steve's a full member and crushing it. Steve, I'm working on a potential surprise for you at the event. I'm not going to tell you anything else besides that, but you might have a little surprise coming if I can pull it off. So yeah, no, awesome. I mean, I put the link in, it's like, we're not going to beat you over the head with it, but I wrote a good email yesterday about the fence sitters. And I just, I don't know, man, like, it's like at the end of the day, like the testimonials, like we have, like the one thing I'm most proud of, Justin, I think of just the stuff in the last year, Copy Accelerator, RMBC, all this other stuff, but really Copy Accelerator being one of the dominant ones is just like the amount of testimonials and success stories we have is just like absurd. Like we have, and we collect those wins from members. We have like hundreds of testimonials and wins from people who are in the mastermind, but even people who attended the event and didn't join the mastermind. And like I shared some yesterday, but it's like a handful. It's like, I just don't know any other mastermind out there that has like a fraction of like the wins that we have. Like so many people like win. And so I guess ultimately, to think about for the fence sitters, like I said in the email, it's like, if you have the chance to come, like this is how you change, your life or your business or your career, whatever it is. I mean, this is like the spark that makes it happen. So for all those who are able to, I just would, I hope you come. You got till Friday to do it. But if you think you might, you're on the fence, you shouldn't be after my email, then apply using that link and talk to Blake, and let's go from there.
Yep. Cool. So I'll answer that last question that no one put in. How am I going to find clients at the mastermind? Are the offer owners looking for experienced writers, or are they willing to help newbies? There's usually people looking for both. There are people sometimes looking for more like junior copywriters. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility. It really depends on the client. Certain clients are looking for experienced ones. Certain ones are looking for lower level junior writers. So there's usually a pretty good mix of clients looking for both.
Yeah. That's the thing I think junior writers should think about is like, you have an advantage in that, like I talked about before, by being there, by being in the room, it shows you belong. And there's an idea that, like people are more likely to hire you anyway. And then frankly, you're going to charge less money, which is appealing because some people want to hire a bunch of junior writers, try them out, see which ones have potential, and then like mentor them and train them. So like in some respects, a junior writer has an advantage over a more experienced writer for some of these types of positions. And I think like that's something important to think about too.
Yep.
I'll put the link one more time in case you haven't rushed to apply.
Let's do that. So yeah, just a reminder, Friday is the last day. So if you need to, which means you need to book your call probably today to have the call either tomorrow or Friday with Blake. Blake will make sure you're a good fit. If you're a good fit, then you can get a ticket. If you already came to one of our previous events, you don't need to do the call. You can just buy a ticket. So yeah, so we're going to wrap this up now. Appreciate you guys all staying on with us and coming to the call today. I hope it was helpful. I hope you took a lot of value away. It seems like you did. It was a fun call definitely for me to do. I know it's fun kind of talking about this kind of stuff. So yeah, hope you guys have a good day, and we'll be seeing a bunch of you next week at the event. And until then, sayonara.
Thanks, everyone.